People went silently as the invasion started, concerning their lives without being conscious of the silence of a fleet that floated above the planet's atmosphere. And then abruptly, as alien ships pierced the sky, it split open. The clouds had an odd shine to them. The buzzing sound of cold light conveyed the streets, sent chills down people's spines, crowded with terrified individuals looking up, having a mixture of awe on their expressions. That this alien force's leaders were composed, self-satisfied despite having seen planets like Earth in front of hundreds of them. Earth was a primitive planet that had hardly evolved. Funny miniature universe that hadn't reached out to the stars, who were the Earth's and other worlds' conquerors, were only one more name on their roster with their sophisticated technologies. They believed Earth wouldn't provide any opposition worth mentioning in their imposing authority. The extraterrestrial overlords saw the spacecraft. Earth's initial defense efforts, anti-aircraft, were launched by military aircraft. Missiles fired. But it all seemed to the aliens appeared to be toy soldiers attempting to capture, taking down a behemoth with just one flip of all of Earth's weapons and shields dissolved and fell to the ground, leaving only rubble and smoke. They laughed as they observed Earth's leaders tried all they could come up with, launching one missile after another at them, but the alien has nothing left to scratch. This was a show where the leaders leaned back, looking at screens that display pictures of Earth's unsuccessful assaults, were amused by the human desperation. They witnessed the mobilization of Earth's military bases, saw tanks thundering over fields, saw jets. It was amusing as it streaked across the skies. These humans, one alien, to no end, sneered by the leader. They continued to quarrel with gunpowder and metal. How charming aliens were unaware that one of the 1 billion people live on Earth. Figure was keeping a tight eye on them as they observed Earth with a single soldier concealed. And silent watched the extraterrestrial vessels. Using a pair of binoculars, the viewer. A green roof above an abandoned structure. Beret is an expert on survival and strategies that are specifically tailored to the circumstances, in contrast to the generals planning their assaults on bunkers, that he didn't possess perceptions of defeating the aliens head-on, knowing he had to outsmart them. To make use of his limited resources in ways that never anticipated. When he observed the alien in his mind, troops parade through the heavens, was already racing and not considering. He was considering either firearms or missiles. Anything distinct that he recognized as alien. The technology was superior to that of Earth. Their vessels glided with ease, thwarting all attempts by her military had produced, but the technology wasn't. He was patient in everything, and he recognized the importance of being aware of the enemy. He could see it. He knew their kind. In the way of their faces on the screens, they sat in their command center, feeling arrogant. It is worth their time to expect no opposition. He started to identify them as he watched them. Minor aspects, they appeared confident in their power, almost arrogant. They swooped up close. Shapes as if no one would venture to. He saw their routines and challenged them. Their motions, timing, they had a schedule, and it appeared that they repeated it. Their conceit is constant. They were predictable and dependable. Was a flaw that he could take advantage of. The Green Beret remained in the darkness for hours, taking notes and creating a strategy. He recalled his years of training, experience in harsh environments where the enemy were unaware of the terrain. Many and assist non-existent. He wasn't all that different. Yes, they believed they were a more powerful force. However, they were foreseeable given their methods, and that he was aware could exist in his equipment was simple. Only a few binoculars, a radio and tools with limited range, and a few items he had acquired from the remnants of an abandoned shop. The aliens wouldn't anticipate him, would not comprehend the extent to which neither he nor they were willing to leave. Expect the pranks he was going to. Humans were easily weakened by them. Management, but this lone soldier was roughly to demonstrate to them that even the tiniest of behemoth could be shaken by opposition. Concealed by shadows while crouching in silence as he reviewed his strategy, honing each, he knew in detail that he had to strike silently and without warning to make them challenge their presumptions about what they know. He would demonstrate to them the truth about this planet. Conquering Earth wasn't easy, and that when pressed, people would retaliate with all of their possessions. As the sun started to descend below the horizon, casting long, he recognized the time from the shadows above the city was on the way. The aliens viewed Earth as a planet eager for a challenge without risk, to no longer be claimed by its people dangerous compared to insects. But they had not seen what one yet, but they had met him. Unbreakable and human-driven, it was able to. Of the Green Beret examined his timepiece. The aliens' minds were clear and solid. Statistics, the technology, and the benefit of astonishment. but he wasn't with them. A person who would never give up regardless of the odds, Earth's governments moved quickly, deploying all available using force to try to combat the extraterrestrial military installations buzzed with activity as a threat. As ground forces prepped, jets scurried in. For a conflict on a larger scale, tanks were never seen rolling across the city. Earth's streets were laden with missiles, and skyward-ready technology was the goal. To confront the intruders head-on, however, the alien ships hovered peacefully. They saw Earth's endeavors without emotion, coolly making fun of detachment, a little annoyance instead, than a danger at the first indication of an assault on their shields shimmered into position, creating an almost invisible wall encircling every ship. Earth's missiles, regardless of their size or speed, dissolved when struck, exploding into innocuous sparks. Powerful explosives, missiles, and bullets both were unable to leave any scratches. Like stones, the shields crash off. Against stone in a single cold, calculating the alien overlords started to sweep, tearing down Earth's defenses from the alien leader's command ship. Mildly observed the pandemonium below. Amused by the endeavors of humanity, they continue to employ projectile weaponry, said, laughing. They're like kids. Slapping sticks during the invasion had been a simple chore for them. Ships coordinated flawlessly, overtaking the world and neutralizing one by one jets from military bases that were shot down in an attempt to engage in seconds that leave only the trails of the alien smoke in the sky's unique delight in observing how some of the best pilots on Earth tried maneuvering only to discover that they are totally out-equaled by the aliens' velocity and accuracy. For those on the ground, news broadcasts caused panic to spread swiftly, captured the futile efforts of Earth's forces, showing video of cities occupied by military forces from elsewhere. Outposts collapsed in a matter of seconds, and every attack causes national landmarks to collapse. Encountered alien ships with the same outcome, unharmed, navigating through the devastation. Civilians, as though they controlled the skies, started to run away while others searched for sanctuary in the fervent hope that some wonder. But as the panic increased, the aliens appeared unconcerned with carrying on their attack with a cool, collected that just made humanity's misery worse. The extraterrestrial rulers spoke in their peculiar language while giving commands without rushing or overstressing. Their self-assurance was total, and the forces of Earth were nothing more than insects that are scuttling for them. Attempts by the feudal class to survive. The alien leaders' smug grins and casual giggles demonstrated their complete confidence in their own. They viewed this invasion as a sign of superiority. Task that only needed to be routine. Earth was just another planet to them. Acquisition and its inhabitants, nevertheless, many were helpless and vulnerable. Didn't realize someone might think about opposing on another level. In the middle of this tremendous strength, a soldier slipped past without being seen. Shadows closely observing the extraterrestrial. The Green Beret, viewing the forces at work from obscure places, snatched one each, described the ship's movements in timing and detail. Patrol routines, and he had no substitute. Hefty weapons and no cutting-edge technology to even out the playing field with what he yet had expertise in understanding how to recognize trends, learn how to adjust, and battle using everything he had available, while Earth's resistance was ridiculed by the aliens. Noted every area of weakness. Every moment of his overconfidence caused him to observe their patrols. Repeat the same procedure each time. No observed the steady sweep of their ship scans and committed their timing to memory. The Green Beret recognized that combat to confront them directly would be death, but he also realized that their greatest strength over confidence and weakness had caused them to. They were reckless and thought Earth had lost, was unavoidably finalized, and they disregarded the danger a single irresolute soldier could pretend to be Earth's. The Green's primary defense lines fell. Beret took the initial moves in the direction of a high. He worked alone on counter-strike, isolated from the deteriorating front lines of the military, without support and without hope for direct assistance. This was his universe. Individuals, and he would protect it by scouting Karis, laying out his own traps beforehand. Use his understanding of the landscape and his capacity to move without the aliens noticing. Had never come across such strategies. Heavy armies were anticipated before full-scale artillery strikes. Objects that could foresee and surpass what they was surprised by precision's patience and a single person's unwavering spirit. He tried someone who wouldn't accept loss. Their reactions, making slight adjustments. There was a small explosion here first, and then every time the aliens arrive, there is a blackout. Force sweeping areas were used in response. Exhaustively, but failing to locate anyone, the ace soldier had them pursuing a ghost named Shadows, who launched an attack covertly. He noted each action they took, reaction speeds, their communication style, and the speed at which they adjusted. He was laying the foundation for something more, requiring them to invest funds in what appeared to be minor disruptions in their command area. Aliens in the center started to notice, despite the fact that these minor disturbances were not much worried about one person causing one, smiled and dismissed the situation. But not only was the Green Beret causing difficulties, he was researching and learning based on their responses and collection details for a bigger scheme, that he wasn't simply any soldier for whom he received training, surviving amid the most adverse circumstances to think creatively and act independently. Concerned that Earth's normal forces may have failed, but his goal was distinct. Wasn't only defending Earth, he was fighting since he was aware that he might produce a distinction as the extraterrestrial forces persisted their sweep without realizing his intention. The Green Beret became a part of the confusion. The aliens are concealed in plain sight. Words of mockery and laughter were meaningless. He did not intend to take any action. Not directly, at least not by force. This was an endurance mission of shrewdness, of making them reconsider, understood that even the strongest adversary might be defeated if they failed to see the Green Beret's threat. Made his first move didn't require a lot of strength. Firearms or advanced equipment that he possessed was the surprise component, and that he slipped into position with the ability to utilize it. His exact plan, sharp focus, and the ships weren't the first target, shields, but the more compact gadgets and the equipment that the aliens used. Realized that upsetting even a small portion of their activities could send shock waves that traveled throughout their whole system. His first act was a silent assault. They were surprised that he tampered with a key relay supply using tools he made from recycled materials to the extraterrestrials. This was an exception, a small hiccup on systems, but it was sufficient to compel a reaction to force them to reallocate resources. Examining this wasn't about immediate impact. It was about being aware of how they functioned, prioritized each response, and provided him with a new information that is more understandable image of their shortcomings. In motion, he struck through rubble and shadows. Once more, he targeted a power junction. The impact was instantaneous. Systems with weak, flickering lights that seemed alien crews rushed to put things back in order. Serene assurance changing as they noticed that someone or something was blocking the Green Beret's view from seeing their responses from a distance, that he could see the haste with which they moved. Their annoyance as they listened to the tension in their voices had vanished. Unconcerned, they knew, if only vaguely, that there was a problem. As the hours went by, his strategies changed. Started placing little explosives and traps, activated by movement intended to produce perplexity, as opposed to devastation. Each explosion was a touch, a whisper, a reminder that their level of security was lower than they thought. The aliens became wary. Their patrols more often, more circumspect movements. They no longer walked with assurance, moving with hesitatingly, looking around them. The regulations had been altered by the Green Beret. Changed the power dynamics just enough. His strategy to agitate them was he struck them precisely and relentlessly, were unexpected at times that caused disruptions. He didn't have to participate in their routine. He made them feel his presence right away. Never disclosing oneself in the following each blow, he observed as they faltered, as they adjusted their defenses, attempting to anticipate his next action, but he was constantly adjusting and one step ahead. Quicker than they could understand. His biggest weapon was his unpredictable nature, and he used it with accuracy. With every hour that goes by, the extraterrestrial masters, as their annoyance increased, they deployed more troops, committing whole squads to discovering this phantom that is affecting their difficulties. But the Green Baron was able to blend in with the surroundings to become, when he needed to use the invisible, he was a ghost, using the environment to his advantage. Untraceable at all times, leaving only sufficient proof to inform them that he'd been there. He worked fast and well, focusing on communication infrastructure, command posts and lines. He wasn't merely, he was tearing down their system while fighting. From the inside, gradually, the purpose of the interruption was to force to elicit a response from them. He used their strength against them by using cutting-edge technology as a lure, aware that they would act quickly to safeguard it, to reestablish order. He recognized that his adversary's psyche acknowledged their conceit, and their increasing dread of foreigners' command was once so composed and contemptuous. A flurry of activity orders were immediately protocols for barked units dispatched, doubled the accomplishments of the Green Beret. What the whole military on Earth couldn't do made the aliens feel exposed. Could not ignore him any longer, but neither would they be able to capture him every time that he slipped, believing they had him cornered. Leaving behind nothing but the remains of the weapons he used for his attacks became more powerful, each one nearer to their primary functions. He wanted them to understand that he wasn't only in solitary annoyance but a purposeful. He could see the fractures in the strategic threat, building their self-confidence in the manner that they looked over their shoulders, suspicious of what could possibly happen next. This was more than resistance, was a form of psychological warfare. He was sowing doubtful seeds, eroding their feeling of authority. That the elite forces of the aliens were used, personnel with the skills necessary for close combat in identifying and eliminating dangers. But these troops had never encountered an adversary. They formed up like him, traversing regions with advanced sophisticated weapons and scanners, but he stayed out of reach at all times. He was aware of when to remain hidden in advance, when to attack and when to leave. They were worn out and frustrated, kept pushing them farther, disturbing their resources and producing more. He targeted their food supplies, causing panic, their water supplies, anything that would make them uneasy, with anything that would serve as a reminder that Earth wasn't. They may possess the technology. However, he had the benefit of being aware of the terrain awareness and survival skills. He had patience and limitless resources. Systematically removing their comforts, their conviction that the extraterrestrial masters observed the reports. First, they lost their amusement when they understood that this lone person posed more than a threat. However, he was a symbol of resistance, disobeying them in ways that would have expected to confront their beliefs regarding humanity. This was not an army, not the defense of a country. It was a one unwavering, relentless force, unstoppable. His strategies didn't focus on brute force, but flexibility in tactics, and he was displaying an unbreakable spirit, showing them that Earth was more than simply a planet. Conquer, it was a location with those who would battle to see who could maintain their position. Despite the odds, he served as a reminder that power wasn't just found in numbers or advanced weaponry, was central to the determination to live and defend what was important. As the Green Beret moved through the ruins of the city in silence, as he prepared his next blow, he was aware that he had accomplished something priceless, had shook them and caused them to wonder, and demonstrated to them that Earth's it was difficult to crush his spirit. He realized now that the conflict was far from done, that they were afraid of him, even if they never acknowledged that the extraterrestrial rulers had becoming enraged at this one person's embarrassed them by interfering with their plans. This caused them to doubt their control over. They concluded that he could longer be disregarded. High Command issued fresh directives to get rid of this persistent danger, that elite alien teams were prepared for eradication and tracking were implemented. Having a single goal: locate and eliminate they searched the wreckage of the city, Green Beret. Their movements were precise and well managed. With their weapons ready, they used their finest sensors, fine-tuning each tools to identify that the Green's smallest human signature. Beret continued to be elusive. Despite their strong tools, and his coordinated sweeps caused him to slip through their lines, departing from them frustrated. He evaded being discovered by observing their movements at the appropriate times and leaving only subtle. He recognized the traces that had deceived them, knowing the chances would change if they cornered him, not work to his advantage, as he lacked illusions on his prospects in a direct conflict with such highly developed forces. Thus, he concentrated on remaining unpredictable, use his understanding of survival in this way to avoid them while remaining near enough to keep an eye on their behaviors that increased their annoyance over hours of each time. Searches yielded nothing. They believed they had found him, arrived to discover nothing but a strategically positioned decoy. For each false lead forced them to exercise even more prudence, then to disperse their assets widely. Examining and re-examining their routes, the Green Beret took advantage of this, taking advantage of the smallest indications of exhaustion or lack of tolerance in his hunters. Every error they make, every second of anger became a component of his. He recognized the importance of allowing them to feel intimately connected just to finally let the target slip away. Meanwhile, an extraterrestrial command was received. Continuous updates that are getting more. This one individual was upset and had moved their shift in emphasis from global to personal control. They were unable to comprehend how he stayed away from their technology, because was a pride issue that they had never encountered such tenacity from a single human without assistance. This wasn't meant to occur. Their armies were built to control, to quickly crush resistance. The Green Beret had shifted their confidence into uncertainty, and uncertainty was risky. In the elite forces were paranoid during the war, cautious to the extent of doubt. Every flicker and shadow turned into they started to fear a potential threat. Ambushes, even in the absence of reducing their speed and becoming weaker their attention. The Green Beret noted this change in perception of their fear and annoyance, where suddenly his buddies weren't responding to an actual danger, But to the person they thought he had coerced people to reconsider and inquire about their own strength, the roles had been reversed. We're the hunted instead of the hunters. Every day that goes by, the alien force's high command's confidence was further damaged, kept sending reinforcements to each. The new wave is just as perplexed and frustrated. They extended their reach by the elusive human perimeter of the search, but this only left more their coverage gaps, which he started to take advantage of the Green Beret attacks aimed at these weak areas little. Well-planned strikes that depleted their vitality and caused them to lose their balance. He relied on hit to avoid direct conflict. Run strategies that made them pursue shadows as failure reports persisted. When the alien leaders became desperate, they identified their elite battalions as struggling and working under continual stress and anxiety that morale was declining. And it became evident that something needed to shift, therefore they gave fresh directives to increase the hunt's intensity, even more soldiers concentrating on every available resource for apprehending or eliminating him. But every increase simply contributed to his hands making their lines thinner, increasing their susceptibility to the Green Beret took advantage of this opportunity to alter their he set them up out of desperation. Ambushes that compelled them to enter tight sections where their numbers turned into a disadvantage that he was aware they would pursue mindlessly following their directives, and he enticed them into their wounded pride. Traps that caused them to become confused and delayed, causing them to squander resources and time he had accomplished more than just he was purposefully weakening them in order to survive, making them expend their own energy pursuing. The alien and vain overlords who were observing from a distance struggled to comprehend how their troops were instructed for intricate warfare outfitted with technology that is beyond human comprehension. However, they failed to capture one here. They had lost the psychological benefit, along with their orders for unity become incongruous, with some advocating warn others about aggressive pursuit. Green Beret's awareness of this internal conflict took use of it even more. He targeted isolated units, removing them swiftly and silently attacks again. Causing their activities at this stage of their pursuit had turned into a nightmare where every choice appeared to backfire on every tactic used. A feeling of superiority when they fail had been broken and swapped out with the understanding that their presumptions regarding the Green Beret had been mistaken by humans. Was no longer just a target. Instead, he had become a reminder and a sign of defiance of their own power limitations, even as they stepped up their search and started to lose confidence in their own skills. When paranoia spread, discipline was weakened. Some of the soldiers wondered why. They were pursuing a lone person when the planet itself was their goal. Others thought he was putting them in danger, up for something more significant, and set a trap. They were unable to anticipate this worry turning into their demise as they paused at crucial moments that let him get away once more. The Green Beret ultimately had achieved more than just surviving, had compelled them to face their own weaknesses. Must understand that even with higher technological numbers, they weren't unbeatable. Their attention had changed completely, reducing their objective to at all costs, halting one man, but the cost had increased to the point where they were weary and uncertain. The hunter had turned into the prey, and they were abandoned. Doubting their power and purpose, and the Green Baron's own survival, that he needed to study the witnessed their extraterrestrial motions answers, and took advantage of every vulnerability. He now got ready for the last conflict. His objective wasn't merely survival, but a forceful attack to break their hold on every action he took, had forced him to come to this point. The aliens into a precarious situation. They undervalued him and became reckless in their annoyance, and he set his trap in order to make them pay for it. He had scouted an abandoned urban neighborhood. Deeply acquainted with each street and alley, the extraterrestrials concentrated only on. He was unaware that they were entering. They moved in with his meticulously planned intentions. Meticulous but tired and worn out from their never-ending quest to seize their unattainable goal. But as they advanced, they discovered only quiet and the Green Berets anticipated shadows directing them at every turn. They would take into a location where their devices would be just as detrimental as beneficial. The extraterrestrial forces continued to search and examining every area. Twice their nerves weakened. Then one tiny their forms were disturbed by explosions, causing them to become even more confused. The explosions weren't arbitrary. They were exactly positioned to guide people into a particular the location of his last ambush. Every blast weakened their assurance, demonstrating to them that even now they lacked authority because the alien squads brought their advanced technology together. Communications started to deteriorate. Gadgets that broke down and their shields flickered. He had meticulously undermined the surroundings to interfere with their systems, applying all of his knowledge to utilize the battlefield to his benefit. The aliens were left in confusion and unable to depend on their previously unwavering technology compelled him to face phrases they weren't ready for in the middle of this mayhem. He engaged them in swift with precision. Vicious attacks on leaders, disarming TRS groups, and withdrawing prior to their counterattack. Their motions were characterized by fear. Ill-prepared as they rushed to recover command, for the initial time the aliens were compelled to enter a stance of purely survival, responding to despair. As opposed to power, they had lost their cool, Green Beret, transforming their conceit into fear. The extraterrestrial leaders, observing the collapse of their troops, understood the extent of they had thrown everything in their defeat. At this lone human being, only to observe as he skillfully decimated their ranks and tenacity. They were once flawless. Strategies had collapsed, and now they confronted the unpleasant reality of their technology. Their superiority and sheer numbers, had the Green Beret had not been sufficient, demonstrated the boundaries of their authority, revealing the shortcomings they hadn't even known existed alongside their ranks, and confused the surviving extraterrestrial forces. Started to withdraw, fleeing from the battlefield in a last-ditch effort to reorganize, but he prevented them from doing so. He pursued it relentlessly, turning every step of their retreat into a road. As they departed, backward cost them more. Behind machinery, left there injured, they fought to get away from the unrelenting power that was but a shadow before. He was now all over the place, and they were cornered and trapped. The last alien leaders, and lost, gave the order to withdraw completely from Earth. Their pride was crushed, and they ran away. The remnants of their invasion in the rear, they no longer considered Earth to be a simple conquest, but one person's warning made them face their own susceptibility to that power could not ensure victory on their own. Left their self-assurance damaged, their mission failure as the extraterrestrial vessels disappeared from Earth and flew across the globe. Started to appear out of the shadows, the unnamed and invisible. Green Beret had become a representation of the tenacity, of the capacity of humanity to resist against all odds. He had accomplished more than protect the planet. He has demonstrated that even in the overpowering power one's face, the bravery and tenacity of an individual might significantly impact the alien. The return of Overlords to their distant worlds brought a lesson with them that never anticipated, discovering that Earth wasn't conquest alone. It was a location where even they may be defied by the tiniest force, where strength was greater than technology, and if one person may alter the during a conflict, their invasion had failed because to factors other than armies or weaponry. But because they encountered opposition they were unable to manage or forecast, and they realized as they backed off that the Earth's memory and the Green Berets had pushed them away would come back to haunt them.